Good morning. This is Crossing the Threshold, and I am your host, Garrett Hamlin. I have a question for you. Have you ever really messed things up? And then you deal with that, you suffer with that for a while, you finally extricate yourself from the mess, probably with God's help. And then you turn right back around and get into a similar mess all over again. I'm guilty. I've done that. And we're going to talk about that a little bit today with our guest, with a surprising twist at the end. Our guest today is Miss Heidi Howard. Good morning,
Hello.
Heidi.
Good morning, Garrett.
How are you?
I'm doing good.
Good.
Thank you.
You look vibrant, full of energy today.
Thank you.
And that's not just today. I know you are from around town, and you typically have a lot of energy.
I've been told I'm a bubbly personality.
Bubbly. I was thinking zestful. Yes. All great qualities.
Yeah.
What's your secret to that?
Oh my gosh, prayer, and that's a whole other episode. I'm definitely struggling with some energy issues right now, but I have a lot to be thankful for, and I stay focused on my bigger picture and my bigger meaning, and the things that are important to me. So that kind of keeps me going, and I'm athletic, so I really like to be energetic for my working out and all that stuff, and that keeps me energized.
Mm-hmm. I heard prayer, I heard gratitude, and moving, like use it or lose it, and that the movement generates energy. How often do you get to exercise? What do you do?
Oh, I probably do 6 days a week.
Oh,
and
serious?
I do lift weights, and I walk my dog. I have a puppy,
Aww.
so he needs his exercise too, so we make it a priority to walk every day.
What breed is your puppy?
He's a Shiba Inu.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, his name is Gojira. A lot of people might know around town when he took off, he was gone for a week. That's a whole other episode, too.
That was scary.
Yeah, he's our little miracle dog.
Wow.
So he's doing great, everybody.
Good.
Yeah.
And I hear that there's a struggle with the energy that I know whenever I see you, it's always outside, professional setting, and you have lots of energy. It sounds like that's a challenge sometime to maintain that.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Yep.
A lot of us can relate.
Yeah. Yep.
Professionally, what do you do?
Oh, so I am in business development and sales for a local title company, Pioneer Title.
I love Pioneer Title. I know them.
Yep. It's been a great, I'm newer there in the last 3 months, and it's been incredible. It's an incredible group of people, incredible owner, incredible, they're statewide. I can't say enough good things about it. Truly, truly.
Fantastic. I know whenever you moved over there 3 months ago, and I was excited for you.
Thank
It's
you.
a great place to
Thank
be.
you. I appreciate that.
How about recreation? What do you do for fun?
Oh, work out, keep the dogs. You know, my boyfriend has a dog too, so if we can get them outside. I love kayaking.
Cool.
I have a 15-year-old daughter, so she and I like to go shopping together. I'm going to try to get her in the gym with me this summer for summer break. I also make jewelry. So
nice.
Lots of different things. Definitely not bored. I'm also a homeowner, and if anybody else can relate, that takes up a lot of your time sometimes, and maintaining a home and stuff like that. So
Sure. Homeowner and pet owner.
And pet owner, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you were originally from the Prescott area.
Originally from Vermont, but I moved to Prescott Valley when I was 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll count that.
Yeah.
Well, you're here today because things haven't always been this good.
Right.
You've had some challenges in life.
Yes.
Do you want to go back in time a little bit and tell us when this started and what happened to you?
Okay, so I mean, like I told you earlier, I kind of contemplated like when do I do I? Well, in 1982 when I was born, you know, like how far do we go back? When were some traumatic responses created, and trauma responses and stuff like that? But essentially, for the sake of this conversation, I have always considered myself a Christian. I have always had that reputation of bubbly and happy and joyful. I am usually positive, very energetic. But there was a huge lack of self-esteem, I guess, a hole And somehow I found that the love of another person made me whole and filled a very big void within me. And so I would say that's when things, that's when this particular part of my life started, when I was accepting unacceptable behavior based on my lack of self-worth.
Wow. There's a lot there. Let's unpack that a little bit.
Yeah.
Not uncommon. It's kind of wired into the human condition to seek acceptance.
Right.
And you talked about that hole. Go ahead with the story from there. Tell us more about that.
Okay, so just really quickly, when I was 19, I met somebody, fell in love very, very quickly. It was my first love, my first everything. I ended up marrying this person. There were definitely signs that he had a drinking problem, maybe alcoholic. And I was raised, it's very interesting, I was raised like anti-alcohol. My dad had gotten sober when I was very young, and so we were raised without alcohol in the house, drugs and whatnot. In fact, if anybody drank a beer ever, they were considered an alcoholic. So it was very extreme, I would say.
Wow. Okay.
And so I didn't necessarily I didn't have a problem with drinking. So it was, I wasn't scared necessarily. But somehow it's like I've always called alcoholism like a distant uncle, or like this relative that has always been in my life since before I was born, right? It's this lingering, it's a family thing, it's whatever. And then I ended up with this man, and I accepted unacceptable behavior because he loved me. And we got married, and I had so much purpose, and I was going through so much change in my life. And then that relationship ended very quickly. It was like a 2-year whirlwind, which caused some serious complex PTSD and a very serious abandonment wound after that relationship. So I had some issues that I needed to get therapy for, and I did that. But in the midst of that, I moved in, and I was in Idaho, and then I met this other person.
So with that first love,
yes,
it filled a need, a human need that you had.
And I didn't even realize I had the need. This was overwhelming infatuation, love, and I was committed till the end of time.
Sure. In your stretching to fill that need, you put up with some things that now in retrospect you might say you probably shouldn't have.
Yeah, red flags.
You were young. This did something for you, and you put up with things you couldn't. And red flags. I love that. Yes. So you said that didn't last long. You got free from that.
Yeah.
What happened then?
And it wasn't my doing. I did not want free from that. He basically left me and then went without communication. So that's where that abandonment is.
Oh, wow. That makes things worse.
Yeah, it was absolutely horrible. And so through therapy and through a psychologist and psychiatrist, I've been told I have, after that, I have complex PTSD and then this abandonment wound, right? So then, of course, the next person that I find that loves me, I white-knuckle. And that's where the codependence, I was severely codependent. And so this next person, it was like, I remind myself, I joke, I think in cartoon characters a lot, but I picture that big, overgrown man in the Looney Tunes, and he takes the Bugs Bunny, and he says, "I'm going to love you and hold you and kiss you forever and never let you go until you explode in my hands." And that's pretty much how I approached relationship.
Oh my!
And so
Something you said leaves me really curious, and I'm wondering if you want to talk about it. You said the PTSD from having that security just cut off. He left you, right?
Yep.
And that left you with some PTSD.
Yeah.
What can you go into that? Help us understand the PTSD.
I don't even know the full extent of PTSD, and I know there's many different types, right? For me, it's an emotional, the trauma around being loved and then abandoned, tossed away.
Yeah.
And then, so if you could imagine the lack of self-esteem and being worthless, essentially, to this person, right? And at the time, I was not. My identity, I was a Christian, but my identity was not in the Lord, because I would have been able to eventually pull myself out of that and say, but the Lord loves me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it doesn't matter what this person is going through. His love is not the dictator of my worth.
Right.
And so that is complex.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to get out of that, and also my response, you know, in order to survive that, just went down some squirrely whirly. I had some other issues going on, you know, eating disorders and stuff like that. And that's anxiety, depression, all of it accumulated. So you have to take things piece by piece. Well, we need to get your one thing under control before we can work on something else, and then so on and so forth. And so I gave myself very little time in between relationships from then. So I went into the next relationship with some things bandaged up, but not fully rehabbed the way that God eventually did for me.
Sure. Did you live in a constant fear after that happened at that point?
Constant preoccupation.
Preoccupation
Yeah.
with being abandoned.
Yes.
Okay.
And I didn't know where he was. And, fast forward, I found out, that he had a baby and on the way and all these different things. So he was living his life, and it just, that's why I fast forward like 12 years later when he made amends to me. It meant a lot to me because this did such a doozy. This was a real tanker for me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
When did you talked about identity. When did you start to first find and grow that identity in Christ?
So I always had it there halfway, 1 foot in, and then the rest of my body in the world. But I mean, when I fully re-accepted the Lord in my life, it was in 2016. So that's fast forward like 15 years after all of that. But that was after I met my second husband and went into that relationship with those the PTSD and the abandonment issues. And he, we were talking before we started about it's not a matter of like I love alcoholics, but there's something I was explaining it like we're puzzle pieces, and my lacks matched perfectly their lacks, and so it was a perfect storm, for a codependent person and an alcoholic. It's a very common connection because a codependent person is going to absolutely do and accept whatever it takes in order to try to keep, because they think they have control in this other person and their addiction and making everything work. And we're really, really good at it. We're really good at dysfunction and putting any of our needs out the back door.
Just to keep what's there and to just, like rearrange and reorganize your life around keeping this together despite the issues that are going on. Wow.
Until eventually I did. I woke up and I couldn't do it another day, and I had no clue who I was. Absolutely no clue, because every day I felt I had to show up in whatever capacity. I was too much this, or I wasn't enough this, or our life wasn't this, and this is what it needed to look like. And no matter how I shape-shifted, that person was going to drink regardless. It had absolutely nothing to do with me or our life. It had everything to do with them. And that's when I had to give that person back to the Lord and say, he's yours. He's not mine to control and to try to make complete and happy and whatever.
Yeah. That sounds like an incredibly difficult, emotionally difficult thing to do, especially because of the previous abandonment.
Yeah, 100%. And I remember somebody explaining it to me like, you are white-knuckling, like I was saying about the giant and the bunny and bugs. It's like, I refuse to let go. White-knuckling, holding on so tight to where my knuckles are white. Like, I'm a visual thinker. And when they told me that, I was just like, let go, and then finally, like in 2016, I don't know how far you want me to go with this.
It sounds like we're at that point. I want to know, how did you cross that threshold and do what you knew you had to do, even though in the flesh, that was a frightening thing to do?
Yeah. So it was the scariest thing to me, the absolute most fearful leap. And it's so odd, unless you are in this situation, to consider consider a relationship and addiction. But when you have the perfect, ingredients, PTSD, abandonment, self-worth issues, a lack of the Lord being the number one, you can fall into these places. You're much more susceptible. And so I had been dealing with, we had been dealing as a couple for almost 10 years at this point, alcoholism and all those other things that I said. And we were in church one Sunday, and the pastor, it was very regular day. Obviously, I was in the midst of it, put on my happy face, put on my bubbly smile, got my baby girl ready. And I'm sitting in church, and the pastor says, close your eyes, at the end of service, close your eyes, bow your head, and we're going to pray. And of course, a lot of times they pray to bring you to the Lord. But in this instance, he said, when you close your eyes, what do you see? Who do you see? What is that thing that is keeping you from the Lord? What is that barrier? And he rattled off, addiction, safety, money, all the things that we're all typically addicted to. And all I saw was my husband's face. And in that very moment, it was very obvious to me. I was taking it very serious. And I was just like, oh my gosh. But I really had to think about it, because you close your eyes and you think of the ones you love, right? But in this moment, he was what was keeping me from my relationship with God. And it was so very obvious that I needed to give this person up. And it wasn't like, I need to get rid of this dead weight. It was, I need to put the Lord first. He is what is important, and I am fully putting this human in place of God. And it was life-changing, and within weeks after that, I was baptized, because then the Lord was calling me to be baptized, which I had fought and fought and fought. I'm not a ritual person, at all. And to me, I never understood that concept. I thought, it's a relationship between me and God. What does it have to do with all these other people? But when I laid down my life and I said, God, you're going to get me out of this, because I can't do another day. I was ready to take myself off this planet, but I knew I couldn't then leave my daughter with this person who couldn't even take care of himself. So it's a whole thing. But
was that time rock bottom for you?
I would say so. Absolutely. I literally could not do it another day.
Yeah. I heard
very desolate.
Couple things I want to point out in there. You made it clear this wasn't just, hey, this relationship isn't working, I got to get out of here, or, I'm not being my best self, or really living life, I got to leave this guy. It was, no, this is the obstacle between me and the Lord.
Yes.
This is wrong. This is not putting God first. We got to fix that.
Yep.
And it sounds like at that moment you surrendered it.
I 100% did. And it was so scary, because to me, the worst possible thing was that I was going to lose my husband. Because, you're a Christian and you make this covenant, and marriage means everything to me. And so honestly, the scariest thing for me was to let go of that person, but I trusted God fully, and the fear was that I would lose my husband, and I ended up losing him in that way. The Lord's plan was not for us to stay together, but it wasn't about that. It was fully that I had completely replaced God with this human, no matter whose face it was. It could have been a stuffed animal. It could have been my daughter. The fix needed to be my sight.
Clearly. It's something for everybody, right? It's money. It's pursuit
Yeah.
of success
Yeah.
or, other forms of acceptance
Yes.
or control. It's an idol.
Yeah.
Your husband had become
Yeah.
an idol between you and God.
Yes.
Wow, what courage. What courage. And then you said 2 weeks later, you were baptized.
Yeah, and that was so crazy to me. And that was one of the first times that I was ever like, oh, the Lord is not logical. He is not
Right.
human logic at all. So I had to try to like replace any of my human carnal nature and societal, like, you can't divorce and you're this and you're going to be scorned forever and all these, it's like, that's noise. And I had to just rely on him and say, like, really, like, my husband literally is homeless. I'm divorcing him. I will not allow him in my house. And then here I am. I'm going to go to church and stand up in front of everybody and tell them how much I love the Lord. Like, I felt like such a fraud, but nobody could understand where I was. And it didn't matter. At that time, all of those concerns were noise, and they didn't have a place in my journey. And I fought it. I fought the whisper. I heard him tell me. I was at a completely different church listening to a completely different sermon with a completely different pastor. And I heard that sermon, and then I was just like, and I remember thinking, like, really? Really, God, now? Yep. So then I contacted my home church and asked my pastor, like, if I could be baptized. So.
Wow. So in general, in Christian circles, divorce, you're not supposed to do that. And so you were battling that, probably feeling some shame from it
Yeah.
in the flesh,
Yeah.
while knowing you weren't just divorcing him because things weren't comfortable, things weren't working well, you didn't
No.
get along, he wanted this, you wanted that. It wasn't these normal reasons. He was the idol between you and God.
Yep.
The idol you were turning to instead of God. Wow. Courageous to go through that, to get through that. I want to ask you another question. I'm just curious. Something I've seen with people whenever they are going through a crisis like that and God is reaching out to them, God will do miracles just to show, hey, I'm here. I've got you.
Yeah.
Does anything come to mind on things you saw happen at that time besides, okay, the obvious, in 2 weeks you were baptized, but anything in your life that that God just reached out and flipped a switch for you, him just touching your life in some way to comfort you or encourage you? Anything?
Honestly, the sense of peace.
Oh.
The peace that I felt, and I attribute it not to, like I said earlier, getting rid of the dead weight. It was not that Mark was no longer my burden. It was that I had accepted God and he fully put that peace in my life.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I knew I was on the right path. That was my compass.
Yes.
I sought that peace as my compass for it's even still to this day. And so I'm very in tune with my body, and I feel tense or something. I'm like, Lord, what is this? And I do a scan check and say, I'm feeling this way. What are you telling me? What do you want me to do with this? And so I really dove into that. And then people. He sent me angels. He sent me human people who told me what I needed to hear and that I would listen to. The Lord knew how to speak to me and communicate, and he brought. And so it's a very vulnerable place.
Sure.
And you can meet the wrong people to lead you in the completely wrong direction when you are at such a low and vulnerable place.
Sure.
Right? But I trusted him. I was in constant prayer, in constant contact, and I was just like, I don't know how I'm going to pay for my house. I don't know how I'm going to do my bills. But at the moment, it was like I fully leapt, and said, it's all you, God. And then just listening and following that compass and that peace and hearing these people confirm or not, even some of the wrong people, though that was still a message,
Tell me more. What happened there with the wrong people?
Well, just people who, it just became more obvious. Everybody wants to help, right? And everybody has an answer, and everybody has a story, and everybody has a trauma response that works for them. But when I would hear bad advice or, like, well, maybe he's this and maybe he's that. And it was always like the angel and the devil, right? And it's just like, I know you mean well and God bless you, but being able to have that discernment, that was a miracle. Because at the time, I didn't trust anything or myself. I didn't know what was right, what was wrong, what was up, what was down. And so I was just focused. And so the miracle of discernment in action and knowing that this is, oh my gosh, the Lord sent you. And even they would say, this one woman, Ricky, I love you. She was like, I don't normally do this. Which also in my mind, coming from a narcissist, I was in a relationship with a narcissist, so I also have narcissistic abuse dealing with. That's a trigger. That was a trigger. Oh, yeah, of course. I don't usually do this, but you're so perfect and pretty and blah, 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 right? That's like red flag. But she didn't say that. She said, I honestly do not have the time for you, but God told me that you are in a really bad place and I have no idea who you are. And so I'm reaching out because God told me to. And she was really annoyed by it.
Yeah.
So that was a totally different, I was like, oh, okay.
No game there.
I guess I need to hear what you have to say. And so, it was moments like that. And she really helped me. She was a Christian counselor.
In a nutshell, what was her advice that she was so urgent to share?
It was more, I picture it like grabbing me by the back of my hair and yanking my head back and being like, listen. So one of the strongest things she said to me, because when we spoke, first of all, he didn't show up to our appointments. We were supposed to be couples counseling. So then she just let that play out. And then eventually, she had an unbiased opinion, which of course always puts your defense low, because if she started attacking him immediately, I would be in a position to defend, right? Okay. So she said to me once, she said, Heidi, and we talked about the Christian thing and the divorce thing, and she said something along the lines of, you are about to end your life. You are both, you and Mark are headed to hell, and you are driving the bus. Like, you are literally the one driving the bus. And I was offended because I was like, no, I'm trying to save this person, and I'm trying to do this, and I'm trying to do that, and blah, 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 blah. And she said, yeah. And in all those efforts, you are trying to take control, and you are enabling this person to continue doing whatever he wants. He is not dealing with any of the emotional burden. He can just drink it away. And that's exactly what he's doing. And you are picking up the pieces and driving the bus. And I needed to hear that because it's ugly and it was not what I intended. But then it was the visual that I needed to be like, oh, shoot. Okay. I got to give this guy back to the Lord.
That was the tough love that you needed at that time.
Yep.
Wow. I asked, did you see any miracles from God? And you just lined up. It was people.
Yeah.
It was the discernment that he gave you, the peace that surpasses all understanding at that incredibly difficult time.
Yeah.
Wow. I know you have more to tell and more stories. I invite you back to the show.
Oh, thank you.
To carry this conversation forward in different directions. I'm glad that you're here today.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your story with us.
Yep.
That's incredible. And it's your God story.
100%.
Thank you, Heidi.
Thank you.